So in today's video, we're going to talk about everything that you need to know about the regal looking, intimidating, but fascinating Akita. Welcome back to the Fenrir Canine Show. If you are new here, welcome. My name's Will. I'm a canine behaviourist and I'm the founder and CEO of FenrirDogTraining.com. I've got an advanced diploma in canine behaviour and training, but more importantly, a first-class degree in education. Because my job isn't teaching and training your dog for you. It's about helping you choose the right breed for you and then how to become a high-level canine leader that raises perfect companions yourself. And that is the key to having that dream canine companion you've always wanted. So if you want to join this amazing community we have here around the Fenrir Canine Leaders, make sure you start by liking this video, subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell so you never miss a future upload. Now, with all that out the way, let's dive into one of the most beautiful dog breeds on the planet with a fascinating and interesting lineage. However, one that I very rarely recommend to first-time owners or people with not much experience, and we'll discuss all of that and more in this video. But as always, we can't know where we're going with an Akita until we know where we've been. So let's start with the history. And the history, like I say, is one that is including an ancient breed in the Akita. Now, originally they were developed in Japan and they were vastly used for hunting dogs, but very unfortunately were also used as fighting dogs, and probably even worse, they were considered to be good eating over there back in the day. So people would eat Akitas, which obviously is awful, but again, it's important to know these dogs' lineages. They started to become more and more popular and they were started to become revered by royalty and emperors over in Japan. And then we kind of fast forward and we come to World War II. And at the end of World War II, when there was lots of soldiers from the UK, Europe, but more importantly, America over in Japan, after the World War and the occupancy of Japan, and the American soldiers started to come home, they brought these dogs with them. And it's kind of at this point where the dogs really split off into two. You've got your more traditional Japanese Akitas, and then we've got the American Akitas. And it's the American Akitas that are much more popular here in the UK and over in America, and it's the American Akita that we are going to be focusing on today in this video. Kind of a quick overview of the history. We'll kind of also give a quick overview of the appearance of the American Akita. Now, I always say at this point in a video that you should never ever base your choice on what dog breed is suitable for you, your home, your family and your lifestyle based on the history or the looks of the dog. But I would be remiss to say that it isn't a consideration, and it definitely should be something that you consider and obviously something that you're aware of. So the American Akita, being much bigger than the Japanese Akita, is a very large, muscular, powerful guarding breed, which starts to build the foundation of why they're not a breed that are recommended to many people. Now, in terms of that weight, size and power, the males can often hit around the 120, even up to 140 pound marks, so very big, powerful dogs, with the females usually being kind of 10 or 20 pounds lighter. They're obviously a Spitz type breed, which if you didn't know, kind of is what you're looking at in terms of that wolf-like appearance. So your Akitas, your Huskies, your Malamutes, those type of breeds, which come with that thick coat that sheds copiously, but we'll talk more about that later on in this video when we discuss the exercise and grooming requirements. But there is undeniably fact, it's obvious just how glorious and regal these dogs look, which is why I think so many people are just naturally and inherently drawn towards them. And like I say, I'm not going to dismiss that. They are a fantastic looking breed, but I think a lot of people make a bad decision on bringing an Akita into their home purely based on their looks. Now, that segues us very nicely into starting to talk about the things that are incredibly important when trying to decide what breed is right for you. And the first thing being the temperament of a dog. Now, like I say, this dog is a dog that I don't recommend to many first-time owners at all. And even people with good experience with dogs, I still believe should have good experience and good skill set with quite independently minded, guarding, powerful dogs. First and foremost, the American Akita is an incredible guard dog. Both watchfulness, they're very wary of strangers, but also in actual physical capabilities. Now, you will very rarely see them working in any kind of trained protection dogs, so you're not going to see them alongside breeds like Dobermans or German Shepherds, but you might more commonly see them alongside more livestock guarding breeds that have natural wariness and natural watching and protection dogs. I would say they kind of sit somewhere in the middle, maybe maybe something considered like a bull mastiff or a Connie Corso. They fit in that kind of category of they make an incredible natural, watchful and protection dog, natural guarding dog, but they don't necessarily transition well to high levels of obedience and training. So again, like your bull mastiffs, you're probably not going to see them working alongside the military and the police, even though they are world renowned for being absolutely incredible guard dogs. Now, when raised well, socialized well, they can tolerate other animals and other dogs, but they do have a high prey drive, which does make them quite demanding, which does make them have a higher potential for being a liability in scenarios where you might want to get them out and about, where they might be meeting other animals or other dogs. So you have to be really skilled at making sure that you can first and foremost socialize them, but then also have the levels of obedience required to be able to keep them under control in all situations. They are known for being very good with children, but like all powerful dogs, you have to be very careful with very small children, because accidents can happen, just albeit, like I say, by accident. But young children can get hurt, especially when you've got a younger, quite rambunctious, energetic American Akita. The big concern for me around Akitas with children, and this is speaking kind of from experience of having 2 young sons myself, is that they can be very boisterous. They can play very rough, they can roughhouse. And when you get to that stage where you might start to have your children's friends come over, and if you've got the kind of kids that like to play and like to roughhouse, an Akita is very wary of strangers and very wary of people outside of the family, and level up that kind of watchfulness and protectiveness with the independence of them feeling comfortable in making decisions for themselves. This is where we start to see the disasters that come with the Akita. You have a friend over, they might be playing with your children, the Akita misreads that situation and thinks that your child is under threat, and then the Akita will quite happily go and attack that threat that it deems to its family, which is where children seem to get hurt most when we're talking around this Akita world. And it's something that, as a canine behaviourist, it's things that I have first-hand experience in trying to help people with, and it's one of those situations that if it gets that far, you're probably looking at euthanasia, because the wider community or the parents of the people involved, even if the dog isn't an aggressive dog and it just thinks it's working and doing its job, there's not much you can do to kind of help save that dog at that point. So it's something that you need to be very careful of and very wary of. So then let's talk about the intelligence and the trainability that comes with an American Akita. And first of all, I always talk at this point about how trainability and intelligence aren't the same thing. Trainability is more about how much a dog wants to seek approval, how it wants to work with a handler, how it seeks guidance and direction, whereas intelligence would be more categorized into simply the IQ level of the dog. Now, in terms of intelligence, the Akita is an incredibly intelligent dog, but in terms of trainability, that falls quite low because of that independent streak, because they're very willing to work on their own, guard dogs and be protective of the property on their own. They're not a breed that actively seeks guidance and direction. They're not as severe as some other breeds like a Turkish Kangol, for example, but you definitely need a high level of experience and skill set in being able to harness the intelligence of an Akita, be able to be a very high level leader that enforces boundaries, rules and expectations 100% of the time, so the dog knows that no matter what's happening, where it is, whatever threat it deems might be out there, that you make the decisions and you tell it what is the appropriate behavior and the appropriate way to act in any scenario. You must be able to achieve that level of control and obedience and relationship with your dog if you want to be a good ethical owner of a breed like an American Akita. Now, this definitely can be done, but it's a task that I always say must start from the second you bring your dog home, no later whatsoever. That's why I developed my Perfect Puppy course, which is a step-by-step guide and process from the second you bring your dog home all the way through the entirety of its first year, to ensure that you're socializing the dog well, you're teaching the mandatory levels of obedience to keep it under control no matter where you find yourself, as well as probably one of the most important areas that so many people overlook, and that's about manners of a dog. That's about it being calm, quiet, relaxed, under control in situations when people come to your house. They're not jumping up at people, they're not jumping up and off the furniture, they're not stealing food, they're not resource guarding, all these things that people overlook but very quickly devolve into quite serious behaviours. That's exactly what my Perfect Puppy course is designed to be able to help you achieve. So if you are interested in that, the link is down in the description box below or available over on fenrirdogtraining.com. So let's move on to kind of the health and life expectancy of the Akita. Now, in terms of the life expectancy, you're probably looking around a 10, 11, maybe 12 years old, which is excellent for a large, powerful breed like the American Akita. And in terms of their health, it's actually a very good thing. Like most Spitz type breeds, they do tend to be quite robust and don't suffer from too many health issues, but it doesn't mean that they don't have any. There's a couple of kind of autoimmune issues. There's von Wheelie-Brand's disease, there's bloating gastric torsion, hip and elbow dysplasia, which are both things that are very common with these large, powerful breeds. So by no means are they a super healthy breed, but they're definitely more robust than, say, for example, many of your large, powerful Mastiff type breeds. Now, I think this would be an excellent opportunity to not just take my word for it, but I'm going to cut over to my computer now and I'm going to give a video call to one of my good friends and one of our official Fenrir canine leaders, Jason Corey, who is well known for his glorious Connie Corso Bruce Wayne and being a bit of a Connie Corso expert as well as a world-renowned raw feeding expert. But what a lot of people don't know, that one of his first dog breeds was an American Akita that I believe lived for around 13 years. So we're going to cut over to that conversation. I'll ask Jason a couple of questions and we'll get some answers from somebody with first-hand experience of owning this breed for well over a decade. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, what's up, Will? There
we
you
got there in the end. How you doing?
Good.
Perfect.
How you doing?
Not bad. I am filming a video for an Akita, and I
Okay.
thought this would be an awesome time to speak to you because I know that it was one of your first dog breeds. And was it probably the first breed you had kind of on your own?
It wasn't on my own because I was still at college, but it was one that I had a lot of hands-on training.
Awesome.
Because my previous dog I got when I was in kindergarten, so I wasn't really doing too much training at 5.
Yeah, but you'd had dogs all your life, even though you had that Akita quite young.
Yep. When I was born, my parents had a beagle. From then, when I was in kindergarten, we had a hound dog. He was about 80, 85 pounds, so he's a fairly large size when I was a little kid. And then when I was 19, we got the Akita.
Awesome, which is interesting actually, because I've been spending the whole part of this video up until now talking about how they're probably not the best breed for first-time owners.
For sure. I can definitely say that he was the hardest dog that I've ever had to train. I've had like the hound dog, the Akita, I've had an English bulldog, and now I got Bruce the Cane Corso. The Akita, by far the hardest dog to ever train.
I'm not surprised.
Yes, they're very I don't want to say stubborn, but they're set in their ways. They're definitely they're set in their ways.
Right, hold on.
Definitely not for a first-time owner.
I'm not surprised at all. I'm glad that we're on the same wavelength for that, but perfect. So what I was just talking about in the video, though, was about the health and life expectancy of the breed. Now, I said on average they go around kind of 10 years and that they're a very robust breed, but I think from what we spoke about in the past, yours lived much longer than 10 years.
Yep, he was about 13 and a half. He didn't have any health issues except for when he was a puppy, he had mange. And that was probably due to breeding, and that cleared up really quick when we brought him to the vet. The vet put him on medicine. Within a month, it was all cleared up. And then it was clear sailing until he was around 12, and he started to get a little bit of arthritis. And it wasn't like over the top where he can't walk and he's crippled, but it definitely started to be noticeable. And he lived to 13 and a half. He died on his own, which is, a blessing. It's always a horrible decision when you have to put your dog to sleep. I've had to do it one time. It's awful.
Terrible, isn't it?
I feel for anyone that has to do it and go through it. But so, I mean, we were blessed that he passed peacefully on his own. And he was just so healthy. He was an outdoor dog. His diet was really good. He wasn't on a full raw diet. We'd feed him kibble, but my dad would also buy some raw meat to give him. So I feel like the combination of just living outdoors in fresh air, especially with an Akita, who likes to be outdoors all the time. They're built for the outdoors. Their coat is so thick. I think those two, with the raw meat and the healthy diet and just being outdoors, he was just so healthy. We had zero issues. Pretty much his whole entire life with his health. By far the healthiest dog I've ever had.
Awesome. And that transitions really nicely, actually. I'll ask you this question. You talked about the Akita's coat, and usually at this stage in a video I'll discuss kind of the grooming and the exercise requirements. So I would maybe pass that over to you on how you found, or if someone's thinking about getting an Akita, how much exercise and grooming is involved.
Yes. Now, that was actually after our English Bulldog passed away a few years ago. I've always wanted, or not always, but for the past like 12 years, when I first found the Akita in person, that's what I wanted. But Nikita was also another dog we were considering bringing into the home. It was the first big dog. My wife was around, so she was comfortable with big dogs because he was about 150 large. But man, if you want a clean house, the Akita is probably not the way to go.
No.
They're constantly shedding, and then right now, at least here for Bruce, it's shedding season, so he's starting to shed and blow his coat. And an Akita, next level with their layers of fur. You could literally just do this, and you'd have clumps of fur in your hand, and you can keep doing it, and it just keeps. It's like, where is this hair coming? So if you want a clean house without hair all over everything, then definitely an Akita is not for you. I'd say they're a medium energy dog. We'd take them on a walk a couple times a day, in the morning and evening. I'd rough house with them in the afternoon, play with them outside, play catch, just wrestle around with them. So they're not. I don't think they're a breed where they need exercise like 24/7. They're not at that level, but they definitely need play. They need good leadership. They need a job to do, essentially. So I'd say medium energy, at least mine was. I haven't really seen too many that are really high energy.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly where I'd put them as well. Their kind of output isn't huge. But their endurance is quite good. They'll go at a low output for long periods of time.
Yes, yep. The person I worked with when we first got Bruce actually had two Akitas, and his were about the same too, about not quite medium, maybe a little bit higher, but as long as you gave them a job to do, it really mentally stimulated them, and they mellowed out pretty good.
Yeah, perfect. So kind of last question I'd have for you then, is who would you recommend an Akita to? Because it's a breed that people come to me all the time and say that they want an Akita, and it's actually very rarely a breed that I recommend. I very often find myself trying to talk people out of an Akita, actually, and it's not that I've got anything against them. I think they're wonderful dogs, but I just don't think that they're necessarily suited for many people. So, but I've never owned one. I've worked with lots, but never owned one. So as someone that had one for 13 years, who would you say would suit an Akita in their lifestyle?
Definitely someone who's had like a lot of dog experience. I'm not even talking someone who had dog experience in the past, like had a lab or a golden retriever. I would put this up there with someone who's had a highly trained German Shepherd, one of the Mastiff breeds that takes really strong leadership. Because they are like you said, and like I've said, they're next level. Someone also, they're not the type of dog that's a cuddler. For example, Bruce Wayne wants to just cuddle with me all the time. He wants to cuddle with my wife all the time. And with the Akita, he wanted to be around me. He wanted to be around my family, but he wanted to kind of watch you from a distance. So that's the other thing. If you're looking for the kind of companion dog that wants to be in your lap, wants to be cuddled, they're definitely not like that. They're almost more like a cat. As weird as that sounds.
I say the exact same thing about Siberian Huskies and Malamutes. They're feline-like.
Yes, they're much more cat-like. If you have pets in the house, I would highly say no. If you have other pets in the house, my Akita, he was well socialized with other people. Animals, he hated animals, and it wasn't even like a hatred thing. It's just like the primal instinct. Animals would come in the yard, and they typically wouldn't be leaving. He would.
Yeah, that's the first.
Birds,
the most.
Birds, cats, foxes, rats, anything. Other dogs he's attacked that came in the yard. They're ferocious. I would never want to put my Akita I had in the same room with Bruce, because Bruce probably wouldn't be walking out of that room.
Yeah, they don't mess around, do they?
They do not.
Unfortunately, a lot of the experience I have with these dogs as a behaviourist often comes from kind of more of the negative side. But when people come to me with Akitas, 9 times out of 10, it's dog-to-dog aggression. And they, like you say, they do not mess around. It's not play biting, it's not rough housing, Yeah, red mist instantly. That switch is crazy.
It's almost like they're more like closer to like a wolf's instinct almost. Like, you know, like they're hunting and like, I mean, a 115-pound dog being able to catch a little bird is just like next level. It's just, like I said, he's almost like a cat. That's like what you see a cat doing, not a 115-pound dog doing.
Exactly. Right, Jason, that was awesome. I really appreciate it. I'm going to finish this video off, and then I'll come and catch up with you later, and we'll talk Connie Corsos again.
All right. Take care.
Nice one, bro. Speak to you soon. So how awesome was that? And by the way, make sure you go and follow Jason if you want to kind of hear more from him, more of his philosophies, especially around raw feeding. It's Jason that I collaborated with to make our raw food masterclass that's also available over on fenrirdogtraining.com. Awesome guy, amazing information, tons of cool stuff, especially around the Connie Corso over on his channel. So go over and say hello. Now, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new around here, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Fenrir Canine Show.